How many days of class do we have left? So we have until this Friday, and then after that we're gonna have the JavaScript class. We haven't released the sign up for the JavaScript class yet. I'm encountering some technical difficulties setting that up right now, but hopefully I will have that done before tomorrow. Hopefully. There's no competition like last year. It's just going to be a fun showcase. Why there's no competition is because last year a lot of people used AI. So we just don't want that happening again because it's unfair. So yeah, it is just a class. Um, I'm assuming that's what you signed up for. Okay, let's get into today's lesson. So on Friday, we learned how to put things in a separate CSS file, right? And today we're going to learn how to select by tags. So we're going to delve into that a little bit deeper. So how a CSS rule works is that you have a selector. So from what we learned on Friday, right? It was H1, for example, that selects all the headings. And then you can change the color of that. You could change the font size. So you can change all those things, right? And this is what you call the selector, right? So H1, this can be the H1 tag. It can be the paragraph tag. It can uh it can be the li, right? It can be anything that has text inside of it. And so it defines what elements, HTML elements this rule applies to, right? So yeah, we can see right here, in this case, the selector is H1, and we are saying the font size is 16, the color is red, right? So these are the properties, these are the values. So again, like we see here, property here, property here. So color, font size, these are property, and then values are on this side, and then we can see the values here, 60 pixels and red, right? And we can select HTML elements to style by their tag. So if we use a tag as a selector, it selects all the elements with that tag. So again, like we saw here, remember yesterday we did H1, right, in our CSS? What that meant was it selected all of the headings, all of the H1 headings in our HTML web page, right? So every single H1 was affected. And that's basically what we're saying here. It selects all the elements with that tag. So yeah, all H1 tags will have these features, right? So this is before we add any styling. And let's say we add the styling, right? Let's say we say that the images have to have a height of 200 pixels. And here we have the img tag, right? Image. And what we're going to see here is that all the images have a height of 200 pixels, right? So that is exactly what we see here. Every single image has the same height because we are selecting all the images by using the tag. But there's other ways to do it, right? Sometimes you don't want to affect all the headings or all of the images that are in your web page. You only want to target one of them or like a group of them, right? So let's delve into how to do that. So again, just to recap, this is selecting by tag, right? Selecting by tag is H1, IMG, all those things. That's selecting by tag. Next, let's learn about selecting by class. Selecting by class is when you add a period before it, and then you add whatever name you want here. And it applies to all the HTML elements with that class. So in this case, it's with the class alert. You probably don't know what I'm saying right now. That's okay. We will go over that. So if you don't, you're like, I have no idea what a class is. You are just talking about that. What are you talking about? Don't worry. And there's also select by ID, which is like a number logo, hashtag, however you think of it, number symbol, right? That's what you use. And then you have whatever ID you want. So in this case, it's logo, and all of the single HTML elements with that ID are affected. So one difference between a class is that multiple things can be in it, right? And multiple things can have the same class, whereas ID is more visualized. Again, guys, I can disable your annotation, which I'm going to do right now. All right, nobody should be able to draw anymore. You know, sometimes I forget to do it, but you guys always remind me, so thank you for doing that. Okay, so ID is an attribute where we can add HTML tags to a specific element, right? So like we talked about, one specific element, that's where we use. If we want to target one element, we don't want to target the whole tag, we don't want to target the whole class, that's when we're going to use an ID. And how do we know which elements are going to have the ID that we want? Well, let's look into that, right? This is a normal H1 heading, and it says code HS. Nothing special about it, right? Now we add an ID, and the ID is equal to what we put inside these quotes. So the ID is the attribute. Remember, we learned about attributes already, so just think about this as another attribute. Or if you took the Python class, or literally any other coding class in your entire life, you may have heard of variables. That's another way to think about this, right? So that's all you're doing here. So you're setting the ID equal to whatever is in the quotations. And that is how HTML knows what ID this has. So this sets the ID attribute of this tag to be logo, right? And the ID of an element should be unique. So you can't have repetitive IDs. And again, if you think about it if you took Python, if you didn't, don't worry about what I'm saying. But if you did, you know what a variable is. You have to have unique variable names, right? You can't have them be the same. So the ID of every element should be unique. And there should only be one tag with a given ID on any web page, right? So that's just the same thing we already talked about. It's got to be unique. And again, now that you look at this, it makes more sense, right? You understand what it's actually doing. All we're doing here is we're selecting the heading with this ID, right? So we got the heading with this ID, and now we are targeting it here, right? We are targeting it here. Yeah, so we are targeting that here, right? So we got this ID, and we are targeting with the hashtag. So again, remember, we got to use a hashtag. When we were targeting headings, when we were targeting paragraphs, so all these tags, right? When we were targeting tags, we did not need any symbols in front of it. We just had H1, we just had P, we just had IMG. So when we're doing tags, we don't have anything in front of it. But when we want to change the CSS for an ID, that's when we use this hashtag symbol, number symbol, whatever you want to call it. And again, here we have our CSS styling, right? And it's only going to affect whatever has this ID. So here the CSS styling is font size 60 pixels, and the color here is red. So yeah, the HTML, again, the HTML element with the ID will have a font size of 60 pixels, and it'll be red. ID names, they do have some constraints. They cannot have spaces. So again, just like variable names that we learned already, right? That some of you may have learned already in Python. And then they cannot start with a number. So these are our two rules for ID names. So this is not a valid ID name. This is also not a valid ID name because this starts with a number and this has a space in the middle. So neither of these are valid ID names, right? These are valid ID names because this has a number at the end. A number at the end is acceptable. A number in the middle is also acceptable. You just can't have that number in the beginning. And here, this is also acceptable because we're not using a space, we're using a dash. So these are both acceptable. So we can see here, these both look the same right now, right? Because they're both H1s. But notice how this one has the ID logo. Okay. This one has the ID logo, and this one does not have the ID, right? So what's going to happen is that the one that has the ID logo, the heading with the ID logo, is going to change. It's going to be affected by CSS. So in the style here, so again, we learned that we can do CSS either in a style tag like this, or we can do it in a separate file. But let's say we're doing it in the style tag. We can target the specific ID that this heading has. So we can notice here, the heading with code HS has the ID logo, and we can target that specific ID in our CSS, right? And this is like kind of telling us what overrides what. So for example, let's say there was a CSS style that targeted the entire heading tag, right? All the headings are now blue. But let's say one of those headings had the class, or no, let's say three of those headings had the class, had some class, okay? And those were green. So now those three headings would be green instead of blue. I think the best way to show this is just through a coding demo, which I will go over. So if you're confused, don't worry about it, but this is kind of like the order of importance, right? If you want to think of it that way. Okay, so I think this is going to help clarify this. So why don't you guys guess this? What color is this going to be, this paragraph? Um, Hold up, I can't see the chat right now. Okay. What color do you guys think it's going to be? Green. Yes, it's going to be green. Why? Because we're targeting paragraphs with this P right here, right? This P is targeting all the paragraph tags. So this is going to be green. Okay. Moving on. Now it has the class alert. And remember, for classes, we use a period. We discussed that earlier, right? We didn't come back to that point, so I might have forgotten, but classes use period. So let's say class equals alert. Now what color is this going to be? Is this still going to be green? Yes, now this is going to be red because we can see here the property for this class is red, right? So this is going to override the color green and it's going to be red. So we can see here it's red. So class overrides the tag style. And last but not least, we have a paragraph tag that has the class alert, but it also has the ID logo. So what color is this going to be? Yep, it's going to be blue. It's going to be blue, and it is blue. And if there are no conflicts, all three styles will apply. So if they're different types of styles, so let's say this one was font, let's say this one was font size, and let's say this one was color, all three of them would be applied if they're different things. But these are all colors, so this overrides everything else. If that doesn't make sense, I will show you guys in the demo. So just to recap, right? This is the selector. Select by tag is you have nothing in front of it, you just have the tag. So again, the P tag. And then select by class, you have that period there, right? What is happening here? Did we not already talk about this? Okay, I see. Okay. Um, so yeah, class is an attribute, right? We already talked about it a little bit. So again, class alert, it changes all the paragraphs with the thing, right? And we can have all of these tags can have the same class, right? So different types of tags can still have the same class, and they will have the CSS applied to them. So it doesn't matter if it's a paragraph tag, doesn't matter if it's a heading, doesn't matter if it's a link. So this is how we select by class, as we already learned with the period. And if we want to specify what type of tag it applies to, we just have to put that tag in front of the class. So now this is only going to apply to paragraph tags that have this class. So now it's not going to apply to headings with this class anymore. It's not going to apply to links with this class anymore. It's only going to apply to paragraphs with this class. And this also works with other tags. We just put the tag in front, and then we put the period, and then we put the name of the class we want to target. So um, this paragraph tag has two classes, right? It has alert and it has large. And we separate the class name with spaces. So unlike an ID where a space just means it's invalid, when you have a class name, if you have a space, that just means it's part of two classes, right? So this is not actually part of the class alert large. It's part of two separate classes. It's part of one class that's called alert, and it's part of a separate class that's called large. And we separate that with the space. Again, this is not how it works with IDs, right? With IDs, it is a space means that it's just invalid. So don't try this with IDs. Um, so class names cannot have spaces, right? If you have a space in a class name, it's going to think it's a new class, right? It's going to think it's a separate class. So don't use a space to separate the class name. And class names cannot also start with a number, just like we saw with the ID tag. But unlike with the ID tag, a space means something else completely. So a space will just mean that it's two tags, right? So I will just want to make that differentiation between IDs and classes. So again, we can see that in action here. This is wrong. And this is right. So you can also style links, right? Just like we can style other things, we can style links. The class style overrides the tag style, like we mentioned before. All right, time to show this in the editor. Go to this. Remember what we learned? Let's add a CSS file, right? Um, styles.css. We go over here, link type equals style sheet. Remember, we learned this on Friday. href equals styles dot css. Save. Let's have a heading here that says hello. Reload. You have hello. Let's go over here. I want all headings to actually be the color blue. So I say that. Save. Reload. On. I think I made a mistake here. Did anyone spot the mistake? Um, yeah. I actually don't know what I did wrong here. I don't think they're supposed to go in the body. I'm pretty sure they're supposed to go in the head. Yeah, no. Um, what did I do wrong? Let's take a look at yesterday's slides, shall we? Oh, rel, not type. Save, reload. Okay, that wasn't it. Yeah, let's just take a look at the slides. It is rel. Okay, we also have to have type, right? Okay. So rel is style sheet and then type equals CSS text slash CSS. Hopefully it'll work now. Still doesn't work, huh? What if we just copy this? Oh, okay, this is supposed to be styles.css. There we go, okay. Yeah, so this was supposed to be styles.css, right? Not style.css. Okay. So again, if you ever get stuck like I did right there, go to the slides, right? The slides has all the info you need. So go to the slides, see what you did wrong, and come back, right? Again, if the slides don't help, you can always ask in the Discord. But if you ask in the Discord and I don't know, then I'm probably gonna look at the slides, right? So yeah. So now we have this, right? And it's blue. Hello is blue. Now let's say the class is equal to, let's make it green. Okay. Let's have another heading. Let's have another heading here. And this heading is going to be by, right? Let's click save. Now, both of these are blue, right? Hello and by, they're both blue. Now let's go over here Let's go dot green, right? Dot is what you use to select a class. And I go color. I say green. I click save. I reload. And now we can see the heading we selected with the class green is green. And the other one, it's blue. So we can see here that this is green, this is blue. Now let's have a paragraph. This paragraph also has the class green. And let's say text is green. I love color green very much. It is favorite color. Why not? Okay. Not actually my favorite color. I don't really have one, but let's just say that. I click reload. You can see here the text is green. What a shocker, right? Who would have expected that it's green? Okay, but now let's say that I have h1 in front of this, h1 dot green. What's going to happen? Can anyone guess what's going to happen now that I did h1 dot green? All right, yeah, only hello is green, right? Because what are we doing? We are selecting both the h1 tag and the green class. So unless it meets both of these qualifications, nothing's going to happen, right? So we click save, we reload, and now we see the text we had here is back to being plain old text, and the heading we had here is now green. So let's copy this. And now let's say I want something that only affects the paragraph tags that are also under the green class. Let's say the color for this is actually red. I know the class is green, the color is red. What's happening? I don't know. But let's say the color is red. You know what? Let's do something else. Let's say font size is also like 20 pixels, okay? That is not how you do that, actually. Save, reload. And now we can see the text is slightly bigger and it's also red, but this is still green. Let's add a couple more paragraphs now. This one is going to be, I love big text. It is very cool. Next one is going to be, the next one is going to be also going to be class green. And let's say, I love images. It is very cool. Oh, this is a paragraph tag. Okay, never mind. I love red text. It's very cool. Okay. Now let's head over here. Let's click save. Let's reload. We can see all of the things we added are red. Right? The red text is cool. That's red. The green is red. The big is red. Okay. Everything here is red. Now let's say one of these has the ID. And this ID is big, right? The ID name is big. Let's go over here. Does anyone remember what we used to select an ID? Yes, we use the hashtag, we use the number symbol, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. And then we go big, right? And let's say the big is going to be big. So the font size is 50 pixels. Let's go crazy. Okay. Save, reload. Now we can say I mean, now we can see I love big text. This is very big, right? Everything else is normal. So just we only had this with the ID big, and only this is affected. But the other things in the same class are not affected. And I also want everyone to notice this is still red, right? This text is still red. So just because we selected it with the ID does not mean that whatever it had in the class is gone. All the properties that it had in the class are still there if they're not conflicting. But the font size, we don't keep the font size. We change the font size because those are conflicting. And when it is conflicting, we choose the ID, right? Um, what if we only want one word in the paragraph to be big or small? There's many ways to do that. All right. One way is with a div, for example. We don't know what you don't know what divs are yet, so we're gonna learn that later. But anyways, I think that's about it. That is all we learned today, right? Is there something we didn't cover? I think we covered everything. Okay. Um, stop sharing my screen. We have GimKit for today as well. Homework for today. Ah, yes. The dreaded question. Again, I will release the system class after this. My browser is having issues. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Have a quick gym kit and then we'll end class. First, let me tell you guys the homework. Homework today is module 2.5. Just 2.5 apparently. Okay, so homework today is module 2.5. And then let's do the game kit. My PC is lagging. Why is it doing that? It's never happened before. Okay. I think we're gonna do Fishtopia today because we do not have access to the syllabus, no. The reason why is because sometimes we change the syllabus. Play live. The thing with Don't Look Down is that you don't really do the questions much as the game, right? And a lot of people are confused with CSS, seems like. So let's go with Fishtopia just for today. It's guys, it's not the end of the world. We're gonna have game kits the other days, right? This isn't the last game kit you'll ever play. Code is 70529. I'll wait 2 minutes and then I'll start. Actually, I'll wait 1 minute, then I'll start because you can join this after we start too. All right, let's start the game. All right, guys. Think it's over. Congratulations. Oh, I'm still. Hold up. All right. Congratulations, Arjun, on winning. Fawaz, second place. Juhi, third place. All right. That's it for today. If you have any coding questions, ask in the Discord. I will see you guys all tomorrow. Goodbye.